Hello and welcome to Your Choice 2024 primary election coverage on HOMTV. I'm your host, Danisha McDowell. Today, we're here for a candidate interview with Nathan Mahn, Republican candidate for Ingham County Commissioner for the 12th District. Nathan, thank you so much for being here today.
Danisha, thanks for having me.
Of course. At this time, if you may briefly introduce yourself to the viewing audience.
Okay, great. My name is Nathan Mahn. Like you said, I'm running for County Commissioner in the 12th District. Let's see, what can I say? My background is I'm an engineer by training. I have 2 degrees from MIT, undergrad and a master's. I worked in industry for about 10 years, doing large-scale projects as a member of a team and running projects myself as a lead engineer, things like that. My wife and I moved here about 10 years ago to get her work location settled and to start raising our family. So I've been a stay-at-home parent for the last 10 years. My kids are 10, 8, and 4 at this point. I should know that, right? Yeah. So I've been experiencing Ingham County for about 10 years as a parent and the various cross sections that lets me see. I go to playgroups and my oldest needed some services from early on, so I worked with them and the ISD. I watched the Ingham County Health Department and its role in the COVID crisis and with my little kids, and that was important to me. And I've attended some planning commission meetings here in Meridian Township for a construction project that was in my neighborhood, things like that. As an engineer, I focused on things like logic, programming, circuit design. So I feel like I bring an eye to everything I do that is focused on a systems level analysis, logic, reasoning, problem solving, things like that. So I like to look at the whole system, the entire problem, and see what will work and what unintended consequences there might be lurking and things like that. So that's what my professional background, I think, offers. And if I could take a second here to discuss my theory of governance, because I think it's going to be important to lay that out before I get into all the other questions. So I strongly believe that our government is intended to do certain things well and other things not at all. So I believe in a limited government, which is, as our founders described, to secure our rights. So that means I think there are certain things that our government should do and certain things that our government should not do, which, coupling that with my systems level analysis and all the distortions and things that can come with inappropriate designs in your system that lead to complications later on. I think that's really important to me and bringing that to our political system.
Thank you so much. Each 12th District candidate will be asked a standard list of questions, starting with question number 1. Please explain how your education and professional background make you an ideal candidate for Ingham County Commissioner in the 12th District.
Oh, sorry, I think I just answered that. Is there anything else that I need to add to that? I don't think so. Yeah, I apologize, I squished 2 questions together there, but let's head to the next question.
Please tell us about the communities and people of the 12th District and how you plan to meet their needs.
Okay, yeah. So obviously the 12th District is the neighborhoods that are north of MSU campus. It goes from Abbott on one side to Park Lake on the other, which is where I live. I live right off of Park Lake. And it goes from Grand River north up to Lake Lansing, basically. So it's a very compact, tight community. South of Saginaw is a lot of students, faculty, people that want to be close to that young, vibrant energy of the student life. I love, what goes on MAC and the Bailey neighborhood and things like that. And north of Saginaw is more families and homes, and so but it's still close to campus, and it's a lot of people that are affiliated with MSU. So I know that that's the group that I would be representing directly, and that's the community that we're a part of too. My wife works at MSU, and We go on campus quite a bit, and we're engaged in that community as much as we can be with 3 little kids that aren't college age yet. But in terms of needs for that community, I mean, I believe it's the same as every community. The government's job is to keep us safe and protect our rights. So there's public safety, dealing with crime, dealing with roads and infrastructure. I mean, those are universal needs for every community, and I think that's where I would focus.
Thank you. The next several questions will cover prominent issues in the state of Michigan. In 2022, Proposal 2 was passed by Michigan voters. This proposal brought numerous changes to elections in Michigan and the ways people can vote. Now that these changes have been put into practice, can you tell me your thoughts about these changes?
Sure. Of course, that was last cycle, and the voters approved Prop 2 in 2022. So that language is in the Constitution now of Michigan. So in some sense, I don't know that as a county commissioner, I would be involved in making any decisions. Those are relatively settled, but I can give you my thoughts on some of the parts of Prop 2 that have been implemented. I am a little leery of the emphasis on mail-in ballots. I know it's a very popular thing around here. I was talking to the clerk. I think she said something like 80% of voting in Meridian Township is done by mail-in. Which clearly there was a desire for that sort of thing. Mail-in ballots have some protections, but I think they leave some things up to aspects that are not as transparent as some of our constituents and voters and community members would like. I would like to see some way to use a personally identifying information, whether it's a photo ID or a ID number or something that's maybe more explicit than a signature. Excuse me, I'm checking my notes because this is probably the most complex question that we're going to be talking about. And of course, I'm representing District 12, which is a lot of MSU students, and they're usually only here for 3 to 5 years, but when you request an absentee ballot, that lasts for 10 years before you need to renew it. So there's a little ambiguity in that system there that leaves things up to, not chance, but that leaves things open-ended in a way that I think some people aren't comfortable with. But more broadly, I would say trust in our election system is a big deal. It's of concern. Whatever you think happened in 2020, which is obviously what these initiatives are about, it's not good to have people not trusting the system. So, and some people don't know, and that's not good for anyone. That should concern all of us, because a democracy can't survive with a lack of trust and a lack of confidence. So, telling people they're stupid doesn't really help either. But so we need to find a way to build trust and regain confidence in the system that everyone can buy into and we can all agree on. On the other hand, early voting, I love early voting. It's a great thing to be able to go into a polling place and vote earlier than the voting day, but it's still in the same controlled environment. You're still there going there in person, things like that. I have no problem with that. I think that's a great idea. One thing that Prop 2 did that I'm not so sure about is it does allow for outside money to come in to support election operations, which it has to be disclosed and it's visible, but the way that those two things work with early voting and funding is the Constitution requires at least 9 days of early voting, but it can be more. So outside money can come in to sort of distort the amount of voting access from one district to another, from one county or region to another. And that is also a complication in our system that I don't think we need. I feel like, maintaining a voting system is one of the primary roles of our government, and I think our government should be the one to fund it and control it, and it makes sense to keep it within the purview of the government and not private entities. Sorry, last thing. There's a lot to say here. So at the same time, I don't think that our government should be necessarily maximizing voter turnout as its own goal, because it really needs to maintain neutrality and the appearance of neutrality, again, to build trust in the election system. If there are outside grassroots campaigns to get out the vote or whatever, I think that's fine. That's the American way. But maintaining a separation between those two entities, I think, is important. Now, Prop 2 is what it is, and things are in the Constitution. So I fully support funding the county clerk and supporting the township clerks and maintaining the integrity of our election system as much as possible.
In 2022, Michigan voters also passed Proposal 3, the right to reproductive freedom in Michigan. Please share your stance on abortion and the governing of abortion in both Michigan and the United States.
Sure, thank you. Okay, yeah, so first I'd like to start with some caveats on this one, because I know this is a touchy subject, but as an engineer and thinking about systems, first I'd like to say I'm glad that this issue was returned to the states. I think legal experts across the political spectrum all pretty much agreed that Roe was not especially good constitutional law or precedent, because the US Constitution doesn't empower our federal government to regulate or control abortion one way or the other. It's not in the Constitution, so the federal government has no role in it. So I'm glad that it was returned to the states. What's next? Sorry, I'm going to keep doing this. So of course, again, just like Prop 2, Prop 3 is already passed. So it's been in our Constitution for nearly 2 years now. And so it's basically settled. The voters have said what they wanted, and the Prop 3 doesn't leave much room for legislation in the first place. So it's not really a live issue at this point. And especially not at the county level. I can't imagine what county level governance would be involved in abortion issues. So those are the caveats. I'm going to keep doing this. I apologize. So in terms of my own theory of it, I'm dismayed that it was put into the Constitution rather than dealt with legislatively, because in preparing for this, I was looking at the state constitution. A lot of the older sections are brief. They're just about the structure of the government, basic, rights of the residents of the state, things like that. But a lot of the ballot initiatives that have passed in the last 5 or so years, they had a lot of language. They're just pages and pages of details and specifics and things that I would normally leave up to the legislative process, the political process, that that could be changed if they need to be changed. So doing it as a constitutional amendment really removes the flexibility and the nuance that I would like to see in our political system. On a more personal note, I guess, I would say that if parents are expecting a baby and they weren't intending to become parents, there are still so many other families and parents in the state that would be happy to adopt, are looking to adopt, wish they could adopt. Foster parents are offering their homes to kids that need them. So there are charities and organizations that sort of pair those two groups up with the children that need homes. If anything, I would love to see more support, less onerous hoops to jump through, less costs for parents and organizations to facilitate finding homes for kids that need them. And I suppose one other thing I would say is that if, I know this is a tricky one for a lot of people, but I do have to say, if a baby is conceived through the result of a crime, I think justice demands that the punishment goes to the perpetrator, the criminal in the situation, rather than to the baby. And that's what I would say about that.
Share your thoughts on Michigan's current infrastructure and any improvements you hope to see.
Sure, yeah. So when you say infrastructure, I think mostly roads. So, because roads are a very special case. because we live on the surface of the planet. It's a two-dimensional grid, so there's no way to duplicate a road in the same place. It's what you call an exclusive use of that land. So, and we do have a right to travel, things like that. So, going with my earlier theory of governance, I think roads are where I would focus as is infrastructure for county level spending and priorities, and making sure roads are safe. I've actually, especially in District 12, I haven't seen horrible roads. I think the roads are maintained pretty well, but of course, the price of that is vigilance. So, of course, if there's ever a need for something to be done road-wise, I would support that. Safety and the traffic flow around campus, things like that. Those are issues that the road department can deal with, and I support that. As for other forms of infrastructure, I don't think that it's necessary for the government to be involved in things that the market can work with. So I know there's for example, there's an initiative for broadband. I personally would rather see a market-based solution, because we have so many options already. We have various land options like cable or fiber in more heavily populated areas. There's cell hotspots, there's satellite, so things like that. The market finds a way to find the people that need a service, and it'll figure that out. So I think keeping our infrastructure efforts focused on the truly core aspects of it is where I would like to see us focus.
How do you plan to address economic instability and inflation within the state?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so first I would say that, of course, inflation derives directly from monetary policy, which is the sole responsibility of the federal government. So if you want to deal with inflation, first you should do is call your representative, call your senators, tell them to fix it at the federal level, because that's really where inflation comes from. The Federal Reserve and deficit spending that can be done at the federal level but not the state level. So that's step number one. So at the county level, we're sort of restrained. We have our taxes, we have our spending, we can work with that. So I would love to see the county reduce its taxation and its spending, together in lockstep to reduce that overhead on our working families and our residents. We need to find ways to reduce the tax burden on our residents, overhead costs on our businesses that will always just get passed on to customers, because that's necessary for businesses. Well, that's how a business works. Every cost they incur needs to get paid for by whatever they're selling, right? So that's how that happens. We need to cut any red tape that might prevent new businesses from coming into the county, and we can provide more economic opportunity for our residents by being an enticing destination for new businesses and new innovation. Let me see if there's anything else. I think that was it. We're going quick. As for cutting spending, the budget looks pretty good to me in the most part in terms of focusing on core things. I think I saw a few $1 million in promoting tourism and conferences, and that's paid for by motel taxes and hotel taxes. So I think that's what you would call a self-licking ice cream cone in terms of taking in taxes to promote enticing more people to come and pay those taxes, right? That's something that could probably get looked at more closely. I saw a few aspects to the public health department that are probably larger than they need to be, but I'd like to go through the budget as it is and look at what's being done, what's appropriate for the county to do, what's maybe less appropriate. In a lot of ways, I would rather, I know people don't want to lose services or the things that we already have, and I understand that. So in some sense, I would say freezing spending on the things that we have and not adding new things and letting the economy grow so that these things are a smaller percentage of our budget and that's another less onerous way to sort of rebalance our budget and find ways to reduce our costs and help our families.
Recently, Michigan's automotive companies have experienced challenges related to consumer interest in electric vehicles and labor group interest in wage increases. How do you think the state of Michigan should be involved in supporting these companies?
Okay. First, for EVs, I think whether when someone wants to buy an EV or whatever vehicle they would like to use or drive or purchase, I think that's a customer choice. There are lots of good reasons to buy an EV, whether it's if you think you're helping the environment, that's great. If you have a 2-mile commute and you think it's the right type of vehicle for you, cost-effective wise and efficiency wise, that's great. We have a hybrid plug-in, so it's enough for commuting, but we can also go on road trips. I mean, if you expect to do a lot of driving and you can't always charge overnight, some people need a combustion engine. So I think making that decision is not really appropriate for the government. I don't like to see it putting its thumb on the scale and subsidizing things to distort the market. As technology improves, EVs prices will come down, and that decision point for each person will change. And I think letting people make that choice and making those trade-offs is appropriate at the individual level. As for labor negotiations, I support workers and companies negotiating in good faith on equal footing. So workers have the right to work for whom they choose. They have the right to negotiate their salaries and their benefits and all that stuff. Companies have the right to hire whom they choose and make offers that are either accepted or rejected. So I like to be as hands-off as possible in government interfering with our economy. But I would remind them that on both sides of that issue, they really are dependent on the other. Companies need their workers, and workers need a company that's solvent that can keep paying them. So I hope they are working in good faith on both sides of that issue.
What do you believe to be the biggest issue facing your district? How do you plan to address it?
Okay, I'm going to have to say public safety. So not that Ingham County or District 12 are especially crime-ridden. It's an overly dangerous place to live, obviously, but the trend lines in violent crime have been increasing somewhat since 2015 or so, and it seems like Lansing City proper in particular might be having some issues. I see a lot of State Journal articles about that sort of thing. But more so, I believe that public safety, law enforcement, crime enforcement, our judicial system, that is the core function of our government. So even though it may not be a huge concern, that's where I believe government is at its best. So that is what I would like to focus on. In District 12, I looked, or Ingham, I guess it's Ingham County. The violent crime rate is lower than the Michigan average, but it's not zero, so it's higher than it should be. The property crime and theft rate is about twice the Michigan average, so that's an area that could be improved. Is there anything else? No, but let's just say that the reason I believe in this is that when we're safe in our communities and we have our rights protected and we can walk around our neighborhoods, we can get to know our neighbors, we can build those bonds, we can find friends, we can build a community. Businesses are happy to operate there and they give us opportunities. They make it fun to go out and walk around, and I love walking up and down Grand River and Albert and El Fresco. That's great. So that's facilitated by having a proper theory of governance, good law enforcement, safe neighborhoods, safe communities, and that's the foundation for human flourishing, really.
We have reached our final question. Please provide a closing statement sharing your goals for your district and the state.
Okay, thank you. I grew up in Wisconsin. Don't hate me. So when I was a kid, I remember those Yes, Michigan campaigns that were going on. It was a catchy jingle. I never really thought I would end up living in Michigan, but now that we've been here for about 10 years, it's an amazing state. It's got great people, it's got great resources, and I'm really excited to be involved in trying to make it as good as it can be, even better. The closing statement is my weakest spot, but one thing that I have noticed is that lately Michigan has been losing population. I mean, I think that's of concern, and I hear that talked about at the state level somewhat lately. I think making the state welcoming in the ways that I've explained in terms of my theory of governance, in terms of reducing costs and overheads and burdens, making sure people are safe, they can move here, they can rely on the basics of government securing their rights and protecting them and letting them live as they would like to live, as long as they're not hurting anyone else. I think that's a good way to build Michigan up and improve our community and our interactions and our neighbors and our state as a whole. Exactly the same thing would be true at the county level. So I know my theory of governance is probably a little foreign to most people. I think it's in line with the way our country was founded, and I think it's a reason for a lot of America's and Michigan's greatness thus far. I think it's just the right way to think about government. So if other people would like something else out of their government, I don't know what to say. I'm certainly open to listening and engaging with people. I love talking to people, especially one-on-one. I like to listen more than I talk, so I'm all ears. But I think anything that my constituents would like to tell me or persuade me to do, they'll have would be good to stay within the realm of how does this allow us to each live as we choose? How does this allow us to get to know our neighbors and meet one another on equal footing, not worry about what the person living next to me is going to make me do, rather than getting to know them as an individual and what we can do together. I think that's a better way of looking at the distinction between our government and our society. I love to see people able to make as many of their choices for themselves as possible. So yeah, basically, I think government is there to support our communities and not run our communities. And I'll be going door to door mostly on this campaign. That's how I like to do it, one-on-one, face-to-face. So in the coming weeks and months, look for me going door to door, and I'll be happy to talk to you and engage with you.
Thank you so much for joining me again today, Nathan.
Thanks, Anisha.
Of course. And thank you for tuning in to this candidate interview with Nathan Mahn, Republican candidate for Ingham County Commissioner for the 12th District. I'm Denisha McDowell. Thank you for watching.